You're listening to the Platform Launchers podcast. I'm John Stange, and it's great to have you with us this week, as always, because we're here to talk about building and growing and monetizing your online platform. We're talking about taking your passion, turning it into a platform so that can become your paycheck. And we're glad to have you with us this week. We look forward to this time together. This week, we're going to be talking about a subject that is part of the 5 Ds of online platform development. We talk about these 5 Ds from time to time, and it's really a metric. It's really a just kind of a process that all of us can walk through if we have interest in developing an online platform. And by the way, if you want to learn more about these 5 Ds, you can download our 21-day platform development planning guide at platformlaunchers.com, and it'll show you how to build out a message-based platform and how to really put the structure of that in place. But even in that guide, you're going to see the 5 Ds of online platform development spoken about. The very first D in our list of Ds is this idea of discovering your message. And several weeks ago, we were talking about that. The second D that we talk about when we're speaking about online platform development is delivering your content. So once you have your message figured out, you want to deliver your content so that people can actually hear that message. And there's all sorts of ways to do that. Then after you figure out how you're going to deliver your content, you want to start developing your tribe or your audience. You want to be connecting with people that are actually listening to this content or reading this content or watching this content, depending on how you decide to deliver it. And then after you develop your tribe, that takes you to what we're talking about tonight. This is the fourth D of our 5 Ds of online platform development, and that's deploying your team. So just think about the nature of team life. Think about the nature of what it means to deploy a team for just a quick moment. And even as I ask that, I'll just mention, when you were growing up, think about I was talking to somebody about this very thing earlier today. I was talking to two people about this earlier today. We were talking about team sports. So when you were growing up, did you ever play team sports of any kind? One of my friends that I was talking about this earlier today, she has 4 daughters and they all play softball. And she said, well, I also teach with her at a local university, at Cairn University. And she said, well, I got to head out to the batting cages now with my daughters. And she was just talking about the interesting aspects of the team sports that her daughters play, in particular softball. And so we were talking about that. But I'm wondering, if you're listening to us right now, if you're watching us on YouTube, did you ever play a team sport growing up? I played several sports during my formative years. And I consider it was a very positive experience. I had a lot of fun and really grew in a variety of ways and just learned more about not only the sport, but also just getting along with other people and working toward a common goal. And the truth is, when you look at team sports or really any team activity like that, there are quite a few lessons that you can learn that are beneficial in other spheres of life when you're part of a team. But some of the most consequential teams that I've been part of throughout the course of my life had nothing to do with sports. I think a lot of times when we think of teams, we think of sports, but not all teams are sports related. Many of the teams that I've been part of throughout the course of my life had to do with things like projects, or maybe they were something vocationally connected, or something that had to do with a ministry that I was serving with. Those tend to be a lot of the teams that I've been part of as an adult. And some of those teams have been very consequential in shaping my thinking or teaching me new things about working with people or what it's like to just combine effort to reach a common goal. I really appreciate the things that I've learned through those processes. And I can I can still list the many ways that my life has been impacted by serving on some of these groups that I'm thinking about, even as I mentioned this, teams that were project oriented or vocation oriented or ministry oriented. Some of the most impactful teams that I've ever served on actually had to do with camping ministry. And that's a story for another day, I guess. But at present, I still have the privilege to be part of several teams. And in fact, I've noticed, and maybe you've noticed this as well, but I've noticed that life in general feels much less stressful when you're surrounded by a good team. When I'm surrounded by a good team, it just seems to take a lot of the pressure away. It seems to take a lot of the anxiety away. In recent weeks, I can think of one team in particular in my life. There are several, but I've had to lean on my team that I work with some of the ministry things that I do a bit more heavily than normal. They've proven to be a wonderful support as we've been trying to do all sorts of things and help in all sorts of situations. So, really grateful to be surrounded by a team for lots of reasons. And segueing now into this discussion of platform development and building a message based online platform, when many people begin the process of building a message based online platform, regardless of whatever their message is, most people don't really think about, at least in the early stages, they don't really think about surrounding themselves with a team. I think typically when people think about online influencing and online platform development, whatever phrase you want to use to describe it, I think many people just think of this as maybe a solo sport, if I could use that phrase. They certainly don't think of it as a team activity in many respects. And solo is certainly one way to approach this, but it's not always the best way. Sometimes solo isn't the way you want to be going about this at all. But when I started doing the work that I'm doing online, I'm at present managing two primary platforms, and then there's some secondary things that I'm doing. But I have two primary platforms: a business platform and a faith-based platform. And when I started doing this work online, I have to say I did almost everything by myself, almost every task. So I created content alone. I then edited that content alone. I then published that content alone. And then what ends up happening when you do all that alone, you sometimes find yourself celebrating some of your victories alone. And as I think back to that season, particularly when I was getting things started, I suppose I did that partly because I guess I didn't really think that anyone else would be interested in what I was doing. I wasn't convinced that anyone else would necessarily care. This just seemed like a hobby that I was engaged in, and maybe other people wouldn't be too interested in it. And I can also think that I did this um, kind of alone or as a solo artist instead of treating it like a team sport because my platform was built on a financial shoestring in its early days. Without a doubt, I didn't feel like I had a budget at that point that would really allow me the liberty of working with a team. And so I looked at what I was doing and I thought, I guess essentially I just have to do this by myself. But I was also not terribly convinced that many people would be interested in the type of things that I was doing. And I just thought of it as a hobby that I did by myself. If people cared, I'd certainly love to talk to them about it, but wasn't really convinced that they would care. Now, whether you're in the early process of developing a platform, and I just described a segment of my early days of doing this a little over a decade ago, whether you're in the early days of doing this yourself or whether you've been working on your platform a while, whichever phase you happen to be in, what I'd like to do with the remainder of our time today is I'd like to suggest something about teams that I hope you'll listen to. And specifically, I'd like to suggest three different kinds of teams that would be beneficial to work with. And I'd honestly recommend having each of these in place as soon as possible, particularly if you're feeling somewhat stagnant or somewhat stuck. And each of these have direct benefit. And I guess I'll work in a linear fashion. You'll see how these all connect. But the first team that I think I'd like to recommend that you put in place is a team of mentors and instructors. A team of mentors and a team of instructors. So these are the people that you'll assemble to basically, the idea is that you want them to be passing along their wisdom and their ideas to you. So it's a team of people that you will assemble to learn from. Typically, these are people that we would say are at least several years ahead of you in what you're attempting to do. So you look at what you're attempting to achieve. You want to find some people that have already achieved it and are several years ahead of you in the process, and then kind of reverse engineer this. Look at what they're doing, learn from them, listen to their counsel, and implement those ideas in what you're doing online. It'll save you a ton of time. It'll give you a lot of direction. It could save you a lot of money too, because it's the type of thing that can save you from making costly mistakes. And here's the other thing: when I talk about this idea of building this team of mentors or this team of instructors, these people may or may not be people you know personally, and they may or may not even know that they're mentoring you. That's not even necessary for them to be your mentor. They don't even need to know that they're mentoring you, or for them to instruct you. They don't even need to know that they're instructing you. They may be people that you know, but they may be people you don't know at all. And what do I mean by that? Well, I guess to answer that question, you have to answer another question. Where do you find these people? So some of these people may actually offer coaching services. So if they offer coaching services, yeah, then I guess in that context, you would get to know them on in a one-on-one kind of way. Some of these people might offer things like group learning experiences or membership communities that you can join. Something like that is a possibility. And those, again, would be people that you would end up getting to know personally, and maybe you already know them personally. But others probably can instruct you and mentor you in different ways. It doesn't have to be that one on one type of context or that group context, because they probably offer things like books and courses and blogs and podcasts and YouTube channels. I remember back in the early season of developing what I do online, that's where I was getting my mentorship. That's where I was getting my instruction. I didn't have a lot of spare money really to spend for one-on-one instruction or anything like that. And so I would utilize the books that different people put out, or their courses, or their blogs, or their podcasts. Podcasts were one of the biggest sources for me, by the way. Now I think a lot of people also have YouTube channels that can instruct us many times for free. But if your budget is low, I'd encourage you to start making use of the free content that some of these people that have the capacity to inform you or mentor you, use some of the free content that they're putting out there, at least for starters. And then as your budget increases, and if you're implementing their ideas, I feel pretty confident that your budget will eventually start increasing. When your budget increases, when you get to that spot, you'll definitely want to then invest in some of those one-on-one things or some of those paid products that they offer. Keep investing back in your business. I do that all the time. There are ways that I'm investing in my business. I like to do that through these very things that I'm recommending to you, some of the freebies, but also some of the things that I'm very much willing to pay for. And in fact, one of the biggest expenses I've had as I've been developing what I do online is just paying for coaching and mentorship and things like that. That's where I spend the most money. And I have found it to be highly, highly valuable. In fact, some of the best money I've ever spent was for mentorship and instruction in a variety of areas, from different entrepreneurs and thought leaders and people like that that have poured their wisdom into me, saved me a lot of time, saved me a lot of trouble, because I was able to learn from people who were ahead of me. They had been doing what they had been doing longer. They had wisdom to share. And frequently, I will utilize resources from what I've been earning into reinvesting in my own education. So that's one kind of team, a team of mentors, a team of instructors that I'm encouraging us to have when we talk about this idea of deploying a team. But there are two other kinds of teams I'd like to recommend. The second team is this. It would be a team that you establish, a team that you establish to implement your ideas. So it's a team of implementers. Now, these are the people that implement your ideas, help you carry out your mission in a variety of ways. So they may be people that you partner with in some capacity. Maybe your platform meshes nicely with another person's platform, and you take care of a detail that they don't take care of in their platform, and they take care of something that you don't take care of in your own, and you're able to blend what you're doing so you could partner together. So that's one way that you can get connected with some implementers that help you accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. But another way is by people that, utilizing the help of people that you pay. So obviously now, if you're starting out from scratch and funds are tight, you're going to lean more toward partnering with people than paying for services. But these are both ways to develop this team of implementers, this team of people that will help you actually implement your ideas and your mission. Your team of implementers, what they can do is they can help you accomplish the tasks that you don't really enjoy doing, or you don't want to have time taken out of your schedule to do. They might be editors, they might be designers, they might be accountants, they might be marketers. Somebody in those categories could help you implement some of your ideas. And what ends up happening is when their help is utilized strategically, you begin to see growth taking place in your platform. And you start noticing that it grows on a level that it could never have achieved alone. And you realize that much of that growth is attributed to the team that you've surrounded yourself with. Now, when it comes to implementation, I have to throw something else in here when we talk about building this team of implementers, because a lot of times we think about people when we think about that kind of team, but there's another category of implementation right alongside people that I think is worth considering, and that's the help that you can gain from using digital tools and digital software. I have to say that at this season, being just very honest and very frank, some of the key management needs of my online platforms are actually handled through the software that I'm using. And I think that's kind of interesting to see how that's worked out. But that's probably something that you'll find useful as well as you try to build what you're building. You'll probably notice that software can meet some of your needs. Some of you have probably heard me say time and time again that one of the primary pieces of software I like to use is a software called Kajabi. And if you're listening to the podcast right now, I do have an affiliate link in the description of this podcast for Kajabi that'll double your free trial with Kajabi. So definitely check it out if it's something that you intend on using. But that's very much part of my team of implementers because it manages my email list, it manages the podcasts, it manages the bank of content that I need to put together, it manages payment processing, it does all sorts of things, even allows me to schedule coaching appointments, all sorts of stuff. So I find that really useful as far as I guess you could call it a team member. It's part of that team of implementers, but it's software. And that's something that I'd encourage you to look into. See if there might be some software out there that makes your life a little bit easier. But there's a third category of team that I also want to highlight because it's just as important as your mentors and it's just as important as your implementers. The additional team that I'm referencing is, I think, probably the best thing I could call it is a team of peers. A team of peers. So these are people who are presently doing the same type of thing you're doing. And odds are, if they're doing what you're doing, so odds are they're in the process of building a message-based online platform just like you're doing. And one of the benefits of working together with a team of peers is they help inspire you and they help keep you accountable. Inspiration and accountability are a huge benefit to working with a team of peers. Now, I mentioned this to our members club, many of which are live on the call right now as I'm recording this podcast. They're right here with me. Several of us were talking about right before we went live with the podcast, the fact that accountability is something that we need. And several members reached out to others in the team of peers that we've got going in our members club and said, could you keep me accountable to get this task done this week? This is something that I'd like to get done this week. Or one of our members said, this is something I'd like to get done over the course of this next month. Please feel free, however you choose to do, he said. Whatever you need to do to keep me accountable, I'd like to get this done. And that's the benefit of working with a team of peers. You have inspiration, but you also have accountability. You also have a group of people in that context who can cheer you on when you're struggling and remind you that you're not alone as you attempt to build your business. And they can also celebrate your wins. That's one of the things I love that we have the privilege to do in our members club. We celebrate each other's wins. I have to say, some of the best friends that I have made in my adult years are some of my entrepreneurial peers, people that are doing very similar things to what I'm doing. And we inspire one another. We learn from one another. We share ideas. We celebrate each other's wins. I honestly love them. I've taken a considerable amount of inspiration from them. And I'd encourage you, when you're thinking about setting up some teams, make sure you set up a team of peers, people that really get what you're doing. I think you'll find that highly beneficial. So, kind of recapping here, what does your team currently look like? Do you even have a team? Do you have a team at all? You trying to do this as a solo artist, or are you going to do, what you're doing in the online space as a team player? What does your team currently look like? Are there mentors in place to teach you? Do you have implementers in place to help you activate your ideas? Do you have peers in place to inspire you and hold you accountable? I think we need all three. And if any of those are missing from what you're doing, I'd highly encourage you to just begin reaching out to people that could be part of those teams on your behalf. Establish some new relationships. Get connected with people that fit into these categories. What's going to happen is you're going to end up growing from your interaction with them. especially as you interact with like-minded colleagues and peers and mentors and people that help you implement your ideas. It's super, super helpful to be surrounded with that kind of team because you'll discover very, very quickly that you're going to get a lot more done. And you're not going to just get it done, but you're going to get it done in less time with less stress and less aggravation. So build the team around you. That's the fourth D when we talk about the 5 Ds of online platform development. Again, we're talking about discovering your message. We're talking about delivering your content. We're talking about developing your tribe. We're talking about deploying your team. There's one more D. We're going to talk about that next time when we get together on our next episode of this podcast, and that's deriving your income. And I always save that one for last because the truth is I've noticed that the people that most successfully derive their income, they've got these other things in place. And it's best to have the 4 Ds that come before number 5, deriving your income. It's best to have those 4 Ds in place first, because then that makes it a more stable footing for you to actually earn an income from the work that you're doing online. So we're gonna get to that next week. I hope you'll join us next week as we talk about that subject. It's always a fun one to talk about, deriving our income, because I think for many of us, that's one of our primary goals. That's one of the things that we'd really love to be able to do as we develop a message-based online platform, because if we're able to earn an income from it, it means we're going to be able to carve out more time to create more content and potentially serve more people, because we're going to be able to take other things that we're doing for income off our plate and focus on what we're doing online as far as sharing the messages that we feel most passionate about. And I love helping people figure that out. With that said, I just want to encourage you again, stop over at platformlaunchers.com. We've got all kinds of things there to help you build, grow, and monetize your online platform. And I've mentioned this in some context, but not publicly yet. So I'm going to make mention of it now. In just a few weeks, we are going to be increasing our prices for our members club. So if you get in on our members club now, that's your price forever. As long as you're a member and keep your membership, we're not going to change that price. But we do have a price increase coming up. It's the first time we've done this ever since we launched Platform Launchers. We've never increased the prices, and we do have a price increase coming up in a couple of weeks. So want to encourage you to jump on board if you haven't done so. You can go to platformlaunchers.com right now and jump in our monthly membership. And it's just a lot of fun to get together and really talk about these things and build out that team of peers. But you also get team of mentors in that context as well. We currently charge $49. That price is about to go up, and we'd love to have you in there. You get to try it for a couple weeks for free, too, to see if you like it. Our coaching prices, they're going up as well. So all of that's about to change, but I feel like I'm giving fair notice by letting people know that these things are about to change. And we hope you take advantage of the current prices now before that change comes about. But that's it for us this week. Thanks again for tuning in. It's always fun to be able to spend this time on the podcast together. We look forward to it every week. And next week, remember, we're going to be talking about deriving your income. We're going to be talking about all sorts of details about how you can earn a living from a message-based online platform. I hope you'll tune in with us. And in the meantime, have a wonderful week. We'll see you next time. Take care.